Hello and welcome to this taste challenge. Not a Dawn Busters because I didn't have time. I was on a road trip to Tennessee and Kentucky. I went to 3 distilleries. I wanted to go to more distilleries. I botched the Wild Turkey tour. I could have done that one, but I got sort of confused about the timelines. And then a lot of the other distilleries, they don't have very amenable timelines. In other words, they'll offer tours from 10 to 3. I mean, that's nice, but you're on a trip and then you got to eat, time things to work. Also, some of these tours were packed, were full. This is after Memorial Day, so the height of the summer, Labor Day. Barton Distillery, the Blanton Distillery, now Buffalo Trace in Frankfurt, and I said I want to take the hard hat tour. It's booked. I mean, it was booked. It's basically summer. You can get on there and check their website and you can make a reservation. There is no charge, but you just can't, it's hard to get in. Also, I went to the Barton Distillery in Bardstown, Kentucky, free tour. And a fantastic tour, by the way. No folksy, down-home, good old boy jokes, scripted jokes, none of that. Basically, it's just the science of it. Here's how we do like people accuse my beer reviews, they say they're monotone. It's just, oh, the beer is like this and the beer is like that. I understand that. My reviews are that way. Never was much into a comedy show, but there are reviewers that do the comedy show and the fabulous jokes. Approach, go to Jack Daniel's distillery in Tennessee. I did that on Tuesday, the 30th, and you get the corny jokes that are scripted. You get to see a good amount of the distillery. You get to taste a very tiny amount of their bourbon. Oh, I'm sorry, Tennessee whiskey. But that's what it is, bourbon. But you get to taste like 1 ounce of the Jack Daniels and 1 ounce of the Gentleman Jack. And those are nice. And then 1 ounce of that Jack Daniels made with Ashley, and 1 ounce of the Jack Daniels made with Red Hots. Now, think about that. Do you really need to make whiskey with Red Hots candy? They apparently thought so. And I tried it. And I thought, that is horrific. I'm glad I only tried 1 ounce. But for $17, I mean, okay, I went to the tour. I've done it. But then on the other hand, Barton Distillery in Bardstown, Kentucky is informative, really, more upfront, and it's free, and you get 3 or 4 ounces of the 2 bourbons plus a big amount of their bourbon cream, the chocolate cream with the bourbon, liqueur plus chocolate pecan candy. Same thing at Buffalo Trace, Shenley, or Blanton. Amount of bourbon, a good amount of bourbon, and a good amount of the chocolate cream, and then a good amount of vodka if you want that. So they don't hold back. You look. You go and drive after this, that's on you. We don't recommend it. We're not telling you what to do. So they're basically saying, lit up, but if you want to drive, that's your business. Okay, so it's very, very fine. The Wild Turkey was $10, so I missed that. But anyway, and I did a lot of purchasing. I found items that apparently, according to the website, are not sold in Frankfort, Kentucky, yet there it was on the shelf, 2 bottles. Jim Beam Choice, being discontinued this year. Anyway, we're looking at brandy. You say, why are you bringing up those distilleries? We're looking at brandy. Well, there's a connection. There's no connection with Hennessy except that it's a brandy, a cognac brandy, and it's distilled in France. There is a tour there. I don't know if there's a charge. I suspect there is, and I think it's more like one of those cognac experience tours. You don't really see the actual operations, but you do the sort of like in Louisville, Kentucky, the Evan Williams experience. been experienced. Have you ever been experienced? Well, I have, and I don't need to pay money to be experienced. Going back to Barton Distillery, they don't try to like dance around things. You go into their barrel room, which was how many? 19, the lady said, I think. I can't remember. She said this was a small room. It only had 22,000 barrels. She said, in this room, and I was about to say it, and then she started talking before I said it. She said, in this room, we age Paul Masson brandy barrels because they only use them once for bourbon. After that, they use them for other purposes. So they take this Paul Masson VSOP and they age it. And the spent, very old Barton barrels. And it really adds something to it. It's darker than the Hennessy. Hennessy is medium amber or dark, medium to dark. This one is not much, but a little darker. Do they add coloring? Perhaps. There is no, hold on, I'll be right back. I can see I needed water. From what I recall from the United States Tax and Trade Bureau, there's no restriction against adding coloring and flavoring. Well, you can add it in whiskey, but it has to be disclosed on the bottle. Can't do it in bourbon. It cannot have additives or coloring. Okay, but other whiskeys, it cannot. It can certainly have that. Brandy, preferred that you disclose it on the label. It is not required. So this could have caramel coloring. This I do not know. But aged 4 years in those charred barrels, it probably is just because I mean I don't know. I don't know. The Hartley is upfront about it. I almost grabbed this. I said, "Oh, I'm glad I got to do this. I don't know. I'm going to do the challenge." It tells you right there, brandy with natural flavors and stuff, and caramel color added. Yeah, that's really appealing. It's not appealing to me, and I know I often use Hartley as a something to bounce off of, like to get a cheap laugh, and I make fun of it. And it's $6.99 a bottle on sale, and I get cheap laughs off of it, whatever. Or, you know, like Budweiser is a whipping boy in beer. On the other hand, every liquor store I went to in Tennessee and Kentucky, one of the first things I saw was Hartley brandy. Point of sale displays showing special today, Hartley brandy, peach, and whatever those other flavors they have. I noticed they brought out a E&J brandy vanilla flavor. I haven't had that and probably never will, but they did bring that out. So we can make fun of Hartley brandy, we can ridicule it and get cheap laughs, but yet Zerac is bringing in the big dollars. Either people actually like it, or there's a sufficient number of dedicated alcoholics who are going to buy it weekly and keep it rolling. I don't know. All right. Now to the taste challenge. Hennessy VSOP, the first VSOP brandy, introduced in 1817, specially prepared by the James Hennessy Company of France, Cognac, France, for the Prince of Wales, who loved it. It became so popular they turned it into their own brand, Hennessy VSOP, now known as VSOP Privilege. King George IV of the House of Hanover. Masson VSOP brandy, created for a future king? No. When did it come out? This I don't know. They don't say on the website. All right. They did redo the bottle last year, 2016. They adopted the blue and gold, kind of like black and gold. I think they're trying to compete strong against the E&J VSOP, which is the #1 VSOP. Which, if you notice, they use a blue and silver label. And you always see it on the shelf right next to E&J VSOP. So I've got the little taster snifters, got the tags, Paul Masson, PM, H for Hennessy. All right. Cork. The Hennessy is much more expensive. It's about, well, for the standard size bottle, 750 milliliters, it's about $35. You might get it on sale for 20, 28, 35, 30, but it's usually going to be about 35 bucks. Like I said, the Hartley would be 7 to 9. You're going to get this for about $14 to $16 per bottle. Okay, depending on what sales are being run. I made a mistake and bought some liquor, and the tax was extraordinarily high. I'll never do that again. Tennessee was high, but not terribly bad. The tax in Kentucky I found was quite low relative to other states, and their prices were pretty good. So if I was going to buy liquor on a road trip, I think Kentucky would be a very good choice. All right, so do the challenge. Paul Masson. Paul Masson, a real man, an immigrant to the United States from France, who died 70. James Hennessy, an immigrant to France from Ireland, who died hundreds of years ago. Okay. When I went to Barton Distillery, where they aged this Masson in the bourbon barrels, the once used bourbon barrels, on the tour they give you a bung. They said, here's your bung, free. On the bottom, she put a date, their actual bottling date code. And they talk about how they make it. 17. Oh, E. E is the month. 31 is the date. E, May 17. That's how they label their products. All right, so that was a fantastic tour, and I would highly recommend it. But it's industrial, okay? It's not polished. You're going to walk through gravel. You may get some mud on your shoes. You might get run over by a truck, because really we had to like step out of the way of these huge trucks. They were building a new evaporator. I mean, it's the grit and grime tour. There's the brewmaster walking around, the distillery master, I'm sorry. She said, there he is right there, but he's got auditors here today, so he can't talk to us. Usually he talks to the tour participants. She said, but they're checking things out, so he can't. He's being audited. All right. I'd recommend that, and it's right off the parkway or the interstate, but in Kentucky they have parkways. I mean, it's so easy to get to. My hair is a little crazy, but that's all right. Appearance. Yeah, the Hennessy is just a slight bit darker, but I mean slight. Not more expensive. Now I'm going to start rotating and mixing. Another thing, they were very upfront at the Barton Distillery about what they do. They say, oh, well, we contract age with Paul Masson, which is Constellation Brands, by the way. She said, we used to use these stills. They're showing these old stills. We used to use these stills for vodka and gin. But we don't use those anymore. They haven't been used for 30 years. I said, I understand you get your gin and vodka from Indiana, Lawrenceburg, the old Seagram's distillery, Midwest grain products. She said, oh, yes, that's right. They just bring them in to Bardstown. However they want to blend them. It's already done. The gin is already done up with the botanicals, and then they bottle it, okay? It's much cheaper for them to do that because Midwest Grain Spirits is your premier gin and vodka distillery. Not to mention bourbon. So a lot of the, if you read these articles, a lot of craft bourbons. Get some of these craft bourbons and look at the bottle very carefully. It won't say distilled in whatever hometown by Jenny and John wearing the flannel outfits, using power to the people. It'll say in that town by John and Jenny wearing the flannel singing power to the people, because more than likely it was distilled in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, at this huge industrial macro distillery. But I digress. Now, I think I have it well mixed. Let's see if we have any, I don't want to see, because one was a little bit higher than the other, so I don't want to disclose anything. Let's see, comments. Craig says, hello, did you stay up late to watch game 1 of the NBA Finals? No, I did not. Thankfully, I did not, because as I understand it was an hour waste of time. But I did watch all the Major League Baseball highlights this morning from last night and the night before last, because I tried to watch the highlights at the hotel, but the hotel in Frankfurt, or the motel in Frankfurt, had extremely, I would call it low-fi, not Wi-Fi. It was more like low-fi or slow-fi. Almost as fast as dial-up, but not quite. So it was horrendous, and I just gave up and shut it down and put the laptop away and said, let me get out of here. This is a joke. I'll just double up when I get home and watch all the Major League highlights. Softball World Series is going on right now for college softball. And for the men, today is the beginning of the NCAA college national tournament. So we want to think about our local teams like Southeastern Louisiana and Louisiana State University who are in the tournament, both in Baton Rouge. Okay. First one. Well, it's strong. You know, it's 80 proof, so it's going to be that strong medicinal alcoholic hit. If you're not into high ABV and strong alcohol, why are you even watching this, right? So it's funny that some people will say, oh, it's so boozy. Well, yeah, it's booze. But I understand what they mean. You know, some are better at, say, masking it, or I will say this about the Jack Daniels. I asked the guy, and it was interesting over there because there was like a showdown. He got into this very heated discussion, if you want to call it, with a guy from Scotland who started to question their use of barrels, and the guy was very defensive, watching it and thinking, haha, I like this. I like these fights. And the guy for Jack Daniels, he was on the offensive. I mean, he just, as soon as the guy questioned his product, he was on the attack. So I think their training involves defend the brand, defend the brand. You know, screw Scotland. If they question Jack Daniels, you go on the offensive. You break them down. And the guy backed off. The guy from Scotland backed off because he became rather hostile. I thought the guy from Scotland brought up a legitimate point. The fact that they were going to defend the brand no matter what. You know, it's like it was like a pretty folksy kind of all shucks tour. But when there was a question about the brand, then they went on the offensive. The guy kind of clicked off. So I said, oh, yeah, that's good. So I like that, especially since it didn't involve me. I was just watching it. But when I asked him a question, I said, and I know they are trained for this. I said, what about Jack Daniels? It used to be 90 proof and they dropped it to 80 proof. Did they do that because, and then he kind of cut me off. Right, because the customer, he anticipated my statement, because the customer's proof, it's mellower, milder, and more approachable. I said, yeah, the 80 proof was a little too harsh, huh? Too bold. They don't like to use those terms like harsh. It was a little too bold. I said, yeah, I got you. Our terminology there. They don't call it charcoal aging, mellowing. He was upfront about why they don't say aging. They say if it's aged, they have to give a specific year date and they get taxed on it. But if it's mellowed for taste, so they just mellow it and then they taste it and say it's ready, and then they send it out so they can avoid a layer of tax. I said, clever. Jack Daniels. They mingle it. I said, oh, okay, you mingle it. I got you. Okay, so this is nice, pleasant, a little coconut, a little vanilla, a little wood. I know that Hennessy uses French oak of some sort. Could be Hennessy. Could be. May not be. Okay. Let's check this out. I gotta get this out of my hand because I had that what is it called? Oh, the Cheyenne menthol 100s in my hand earlier, so I don't want to bring that into play. I think right off the bat this is Hennessy. I think it's Hennessy. It's got a little funky turned fruit. Hey, you know, I'm going to call it like I see it. I've been saying this for a few weeks now that the Hennessy VSOP smells like turned fruit. If you want to say rotted fruit, I'm not going to say rotted fruit. I'll use a more pleasant euphemism, turned fruit. And some alcohol burn, but not too strong. So the smell of turned fruit, or do you prefer the smell of caramel, candy sugar, and white oak? Charred white oak. And maybe that's the bourbon barrel. Hey, I mean, you know, I'm pretty sure already what I'm smelling. But we do need to go with the flavor, the taste test. Because I don't want to, you know, make a mistake. It's so sweet. It's so candy sugar, nougat, caramel, vanilla, and I've noticed that the Sazerac bourbons will have that. Kentucky Dale, even the Kentucky Deluxe, even the what's the other one? Sorry, I drank that rest of that Taylor Country Cellars White. I needed to finish it off because it was getting low. So trying to whatever some other products, but they have that kind of a house style, that sweetness. And some people, they say like a sweet brandy. They were talking about that. Some people like a sweet brandy. I mean bourbon or brandy, bourbon, but bourbon mainly. You know, that's what they do. They like the sweet, and they said the wheat brings it sweeter and more mellow. But they said, but they're more in the rye oriented bourbons. They said so they really get into the rye. A little bit higher rye, and they said they understand that some people would be turned off by that. That's what they do, and they understand that some people would be repelled by it, but they're making so much money with what they make, they just full bore with it. And their brand, the number of brands they have is incredible. You know, just they said the very old Barton sells so well up there in Kentucky that in 21 other states, I believe they said that there's no they're not going to change it. They said there's other companies that do the wheat bourbon, wheat oriented bourbons, the sweeter ones. But I do find that even though Barton has that little their brands, I mean, you know, Sazerac brands have that sweetness. There's that pepperiness too from the rye. But this one does kind of even peppery and rye mint type thing. Let's go over here. Let's go over here. Turned fruit, man. That just but the flavor. Now you see, this is where the Hennessy starts to really a horse race. It's behind. It's behind, but when you start to taste it, it starts to accelerate, and it probably runs past the other one. Yeah, Hennessy is I'm talking about the VSOP. It's got some kind of elevated, there's something about it. It's so finely tuned, it's so finely detailed. It's there's a pepper, almost a grains of paradise type approach. and the grapes and the tannins, the grape skin. So you're looking at the Hennessy there. They said they use 60 different eau de vie. That's 60 different wine bases. They take grape wine base and they start distilling it. That's 60 different varieties. And then they start to mingle, as Jack Daniels would say, or blend, as anybody else would say. And then they get this Hennessy VSOP. So the aroma, it's a little off-putting at first. It does breathe and start to develop a little better, though. It's kind of like skunky Carlsberg. You know, if you pop open a green bottle of Carlsberg lager, at first you say, oh, it's skunk, it's trash, garbage. You could say that. But if you let it breathe, then Carlsberg starts to present things that are really wonderful. And you can see why it received a royal warrant from the ruling family of Denmark. Kind of like the Singha beer from Thailand. People say, Singha, Did get a royal warrant from the king of Thailand. Yeah, so as it breathes, this does lose the turned fruit and it starts to gain spice. A lot of spice. A lot of white pepper and nutmeg and even pecan or something, and the dried fruit that you would use in fruit cake. So it doesn't start off strong, but it starts to gain momentum. And when it gains momentum, it's like an unstoppable force. It's an incredible. Unbelievably peppery spice, which it's hard to pin down, but it's so notable. Now this one here comes charging out the gate. I mean, this is a hot shot. Out the gate of the race, it is just on fire. But you see, it starts to, as you go on through it, doesn't lose a lot. And I think if you can get it on sale, $13.99 plus tax. It is a fabulous product. And that aging in bourbon barrels for 4 years just off. Did I like the E&J VSOP? Certainly did. I certainly did. Did I like the Christian Brothers VSOP? Well, I never had it. The VSOP. Well, I didn't hate it. Murmur. SOP is sort of like camo in beer, the camo line. You say, I ain't drinking that, but then you just got to do it. You got to try it. But if you're smart, you won't finish that 24-ounce can. Don't do it. Don't finish it. I finished the Earthquake 12%. Oh, I finished that 24-ounce can. My body was like this. You can bring it down, but it's coming back. Actually, the only beer I ever had in my life that came back. A revisit. But I felt better after it came back because it was bad. It was bad. The 40 Street Legal, I was able to hold it down. With a lot of effort. Unfortunately, I held it down and I felt sick for 3 days. My bones hurt. Literally, my bones hurt. Now, if you drink a beer that's a 24-ounce can and it makes your bones hurt for 3 days, that's an indication you probably don't need to be drinking that beer. I mean, you know, I'm going to sip through that bottle, but if it takes 2 years, I ain't complaining. Well, they're both fabulous, but I think the Hennessy is a little more fabulous. And that's interesting because the way it started, Hennessy was far behind, but it caught up, and then it just far ahead of the pack. But you want to pay $14 a bottle, or you want to pay $35 a bottle? You choose, but you get what you pay for. Let's call it, I'm going to say Hennessy is better, but I'm going to say, and I don't even know yet, I haven't guessed. I think this is the Paul Masson VSOP. I got it. I'm glad I opened my eyes. I was about to go to sleep. Okay, I made it through. I did it. You can do it. So Paul Masson VSOP, not for the kids, not for the college kids. The college kids, yeah, they'll probably be more attuned to the Hartley. Why is that? Because it's $6.99 a bottle. Why else? Because it smells like drizzled, buttered rum cake, which is, if you think about it, is pretty stomach turning. The liquor coming back up. I think that's sort of like a ritual or something to do in college, throw it back up. That wasn't my scene in college, but I know that's a lot of people's scene. I go to enough Louisiana State University football games at Baton Rouge, and I get there at 9 in the morning sometimes, and I see all the 20-year-old sorority girls, with their liquor in one hand and beer in the other. Yeah, go Tigers. Let's go, baby. Let's go Tigers. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And you walk back around, I don't know, 11:45, and they're passed out face down in the grass. And I'm thinking, there's going to be a lot of bad things happening today. But I can't answer to that. I've seen that my whole life, and I don't encourage it. But it happens. Louisiana State University, Baton Rouge is a drinking town with a football problem. That city, Baton Rouge, sort of like they claim their alcoholism. They ought to claim their drug abuse, because as I've ever seen, that's so steeped and entrenched in illegal drug abuse. That's another story. But if I was looking to score amphetamine, and I'm not, but if you're looking to score methadone and things like that for a low price, I think Baton Rouge might be a really good spot to hit. But once again, I digress. I don't retract that, because I know what I've observed in 30 years, and it's a pretty grim situation. Kentucky could give them a run for their money as far as methadone. But anyway, the Hennessy beats it. Fairly solid margin. You're saying the SOP is inferior. It's inferior, but within context. So merits. It's a fabulous VSOP. It's $13.99. It is okay. I would endorse Masson VSOP without any reservations, with my fullest endorsement. Okay. Not to mention that the Paul Masson wine, their table wines are fabulous, and their dessert wines are fabulous. I have yet to have a Paul Masson product that was anything short of completely enjoyable. Okay, so let's bring that into context. Now, let's look at Hennessy. This is a company that was established way back in the 18th century, okay, the 1700s. past masters of distilling brandy. Okay? On your worst day, on their worst day, they would beat your home brandy by leaps and bounds. Okay? Obviously, you could never distill something like this. Base model, the Hennessy VS, every inner city, well, I'm going to stop there, but you know what I mean? Every murmur, et cetera, who's drinking that, regardless of our impressions of that situation, what they're drinking is finely tuned. Okay, so even if you're in Detroit, you're outside the downtown sort of boutique area, you're in the gritty sort of urban dystopian future Mad Max sort of type existence, and you got all the Hennessy, but even then, that life experience can be, it's finely tuned. I talked to a tasting niche, or yeah, over there in France. She's going to Mexico and the United States soon. She said, look, nobody in France drinks brandy. Okay, it's produced in France, the cognac and the brandy. No one in France drinks it. You can get it at a bar. No one asks for it. It's the majority of the exports is to the United States. So let's take that into account. But getting past all the BET, blacks, the blaxploitation, street credibility, it is a fabulous product. You got to get past all that. So past masters of distilling, but they're going to go where the money is. Fifth Avenue, to the Upper West Side, to the Gold Ring family, the Lipschitz family, the Goldberg family. They do it. If they got to target the Johnson family, the Wilson family, the Jones family, Baltimore along US Highway 40 eastbound, they'll do it. It's where the money is, but what they do is fabulous. So yeah, the Hennessy Privileged VSOP is really kicking it. They've got it going on. So I would highly recommend it. My daughter's still saying that the Hennessy Black is the penultimate brandy. I would not necessarily disagree with that. The VSOP is quite nice. So we have two winners here. The Hennessy VSOP, you can't go wrong with it, although we'll get out 40 bucks, two $20 bills, and get a little change and go to McDonald's and get a spicy McChicken. That's about all you're going to do with it. Or you can get the Paul Masson VSOP. And, whoops. And you can get a 15, a 10 and a 5 and have a little change, and also get a spicy McChicken, or a Taco Bell bean burrito, preferably with green sauce. All right, so challenge. I guess the next brandy challenge will be the Paul Masson with Hartley. Not going to be much of a challenge. I'll be able to instantly differentiate. My hypothesis is if I taste those two VSOP brandies in a blind taste test, I will instantly be able to identify which is which, and I will instantly be able to identify which is better, which is going to be the Paul Masson VSOP. Taste challenge, but my prediction is that it won't be much of a challenge. Anyway, thank you for watching this video production. Let's check out the final comments. Okay. So Craig made the only good comment. All right. Well, anyway, so if you do your own taste challenge, let me know what you think. Thank you for watching this video production.